Welcome to the InSession Film Podcast for March 2nd, 2014. This is episode 54, and I'm JD Duran.
And this is Tim Costa.
And this week on the show, Blake is out once again. And if you guys want to actually be thinking of Blake, he's been in the hospital the last 2 weeks, which is why he wasn't on the show last week and this week. He's okay. He's fine. He's had a couple of surgeries, but he's definitely been under the weather, not feeling good. So our thoughts are definitely out there for Blake. But Tim from the First Time Watchers podcast filling in as my co-host this week, and couldn't have had a better fill-in. So thanks for being here, Tim.
No problem, but I think you could have found much better, more quality people.
No, it's definitely great to have you here on the show this week. And we are going to be reviewing Liam Neeson's latest film, Non-Stop. And since the Oscars are today, and we're recording this before the Oscars tonight, so we're not necessarily going to be discussing them. But to go along with that theme, we are going to be discussing our top 3 worst Oscar winners, which for me, especially as I was doing research for this, I found out there are like a million to choose from. So that should be a fun conversation. This week, we were supposed to start our brand new Wes Anderson movie series, which we haven't done one in a while, so we were excited to get back into doing another one. But with Blake being out, we decided to just kind of hold that back for another week or so. So our third segment this week, we're going to discuss some of the latest movie news that was out there in the Independent Spirit Awards, which was last night. So that should be a fun segment to talk about as well. And of course, we'll finish off the show with films we got to see over the last week. But before we get into it, Tim, how was your week, man?
Oh, it was pretty good, man. You know, I was on vacation the previous week, so coming back to work was a little bit challenging. You know, pretty busy work week, but
sure.
Hey, you know, I was still able to catch some pretty cool movies and TV shows.
Awesome.
For yourself?
Yeah, my week was very, very busy too. Work is just really starting to ramp up since I got this new job, and things are really starting to roll, which is fun. But it's also keeping me very, very busy. But I did get to watch quite a few movies this week. I watched some of the Oscar-nominated documentaries that I hadn't got to see yet, so I was trying to get caught up on some of that. So, yeah, it's been a fun week. Very, very busy. Very excited for the Oscars tonight. Should be a good one for sure. But all right, Tim, I think we have a really good show, so let's get into it.
And here we go.
You're listening to the InSession Film Podcast. This is episode 54. Tim, what about Non-Stop, though?
Non-Stop? Starring the Liam Neesons from Tukin?
What the hell was that?
Everything's under control.
Excuse me. Is the captain okay?
Dr. Sir,
I didn't do anything.
come with me now.
Marshal! Is someone gonna tell us what the hell is going on?
I need your help.
Hey, people are scared. We have a right to know why you searched us. Why this plane almost went down. Hey, Marshal, you and I are gonna have a conversation. Don't you walk away from me.
Doctor, cockpit, now. You letting that guy in the cockpit? Here's what's gonna happen. You're gonna go back to your seat, you're gonna sit down, and you're gonna shut up. What? From one cop to another. You know.
All right, Non-Stop is directed by Jean-Calais Serra and stars Liam Neeson, Julianne Moore, Michelle Dockery, sort of Lupita Nyong'o. That's a whole thing we'll get into, and a few other people as well. So, Tim, we're talking about an air marshal stuck in the skies, getting all kinds of crazy text messages. What did you think about the movie Non-Stop?
Well, look, if we're talking about a movie, that's being dumped in February or the beginning of the year, and it's starring Liam Neeson, it sure has better entertain me. And if it's not going to be Liam Neeson, it should be Jack Bauer. But thankfully, it is Liam Neeson, and I got to say, I was entertained throughout the whole film. As the promos, the ads, the trailers for this film served it well. It presented a thriller, a mystery in the vein, something maybe even you could compare it to Flight Plan, starring Jodie Foster.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
And it exactly what it promised, a mystery throughout that kind of goes a little bit silly in the last third of the film. And I know we're going to try to avoid spoilers here, but the reasoning towards the end of the film is a little janky, I think.
Yeah.
But I think overall it delivered on its promise of a mystery thriller action vehicle for Liam Neeson to kick some ass, and that's exactly what he did, for me at least. What about you?
Yeah, I'm actually right in that ballpark as you are. I thought the first two acts of the film were really good. I really enjoyed what was going on. Like you're saying, it was this nice little mystery thriller that was kind of playing out. I don't know if it was something that you'll necessarily remember at the end of the year, but I think it's one of those films you can just go into and just kind of shut off for a couple hours, not have to think about a whole lot, and then just enjoy what you're getting to see in front of you. And I think it really delivered on that for the most part. Like you, though, the third act of this film does take a little bit of a weird turn. I thought the reveal of the mystery was not well executed. And maybe we can kind of debate some of the script there, because I do think that it was well written, in my opinion. I don't think it was necessarily well handled. And part of that, I think, goes back to the casting. I don't necessarily think the villains, once they're revealed, are necessarily that great. They definitely weren't menacing on any level, and I kind of just wish that it was handled differently, because it is kind of an interesting premise, I think. But for the most part, it's one of those, what you see is what you get. But Liam Neeson kind of doing his thing, and I thought that was very interesting. But what did you think about some of his character and some of his backstory? It's not necessarily something we haven't seen before, but in this instance, we're dealing with someone who's an alcoholic who has this really tragic backstory, but it's not often we get to see them in this air marshal role. But what did you think of that and how that was handled?
Yeah, I guess, I don't know. I was worried at the beginning of the film when they show him waiting in his car, ready to go into the terminal, and you see him, pouring a cup of whiskey or bourbon or whatever it is, and it immediately sets off like, oh, okay, this is a guy that has a drinking problem, and this is a cliche storyline, but they don't
hide from that at all.
No, they don't. But it is. One thing that I was struck by was how much smoking was involved in this PG-13 film. Because nowadays in a lot of PG-13 films, you don't see any smoking at all. Sure. And it was just interesting to see at the beginning where he is going through. He's in the bathroom or I see him getting ready or something like that, and you see him take out a roll of duct tape, and you're like, well, what's that for? And then later on, a few minutes later, you see him in the bathroom in the airplane, putting it over the smoke detector. So I was like, oh, okay. But I guess that is written in there, is put in there by either the writer or the director, as to say, oh, hey, he's someone who bends the rules, gets around the rules, and knows how to play around the federal airline regulations or whatever. He's someone who knows all the tricks of the trade. But and he's a weathered man. I guess that's another thing to add character to his person, is that he's smokes and he drinks and he has stubble. And I don't know. I'll tell you, it is a partially well-written.
For the entire version of our podcast, be sure to subscribe to us on iTunes or on Stitcher, or check us out online at InSessionFilm.com.